Hi, welcome back to Movie Laps. Today, I am going to show you an action, thriller movie, called Tenet. Sit back, relax and enjoy the video. The movie commences at an opera house located in Kiev. Just as the show is about to begin, a group of gunmen from Ukraine suddenly barge in, shooting the conductor and causing panic among the orchestra and the audience. Outside, a disguised SWAT team is preparing to enter the building. To subdue the patrons and performers, they release a gas before entering to rescue a compromised spy named Jefferson Hall and retrieve an unidentified object. The protagonist, whose real name is unknown, identifies the spy with the phrase "We live in a twilight world," to which the spy responds, "And there are no friends at dusk." After rescuing the spy, the team neutralizes the bombs set by the gunman. While retrieving the bombs, the protagonist notices a bullet hole and witnesses an unidentified agent with a red tag on his bag catching the bullet as it reverses direction. The team then throws the bombs into an empty section of the theater, and they detonate without any harm. However, the protagonist is captured as the rest of the agents escape. The man regains consciousness between two train tracks, finding himself and another agent restrained and at the mercy of their captors, who are trying to extract information from them through torture. The protagonist attempts to consume a cyanide pill, but one of the captors stops him from doing so. The other agent on the ground pulls out his own pill, and the protagonist lunges for it, eventually consuming it and seemingly dying. However, he later wakes up in a hospital, realizing that the pill was a fake and his colleagues were all dead. The head of his organization, Victor, recruits him for a new mission under a mysterious group called Tenet, which is dedicated to safeguarding the future of the world. The protagonist is introduced to Laura, a woman who will teach him the intricacies of their mission. She hands him a gun with an empty magazine and instructs him to aim it at a rock. To his surprise, the bullet from the rock flies back into the gun. Laura explains that the bullet's entropy is inverted, which means they travel backward through time. Further experiments reveal that the protagonist can manipulate and even catch inverted bullets in the right position. The group in charge has acquired more inverted objects, and their objective is to locate the source of the inverted bullets before the creators can use them to send dangerous items such as nuclear weapons through time inversion. Following the trail of the inverted bullets, the protagonist identifies Sanjay Singh as the possible source and contacts Victor for help in infiltrating his home. He is assisted by a local man named Neil, and they use bungee cords to sneak into Sanjay's building later that night. However, they quickly discover that Sanjay's wife, Priya, is the one they need to talk to. Priya works for Tenet and informs the protagonist that the inverted bullets originate from a Russian oligarch named Andrei Sater, who possesses the ability to communicate with the future. Priya instructs the protagonist to get close to Andrei and uncover how he is able to produce the inverted bullets. The protagonist arranges a meeting with Sir Michael Crosby in a restaurant, where Crosby reveals Andrei Sater's backstory. Andrei grew up in a Soviet secret city that experienced a major disaster and was later repurposed for underground testing. After leaving the city, Andrei became wealthy and settled in England, where he married a woman named Catherine Barton, with whom he is now estranged. Crosby suggests that the protagonist get close to Andrei through Kat and provides him with a fake Goya painting that Andrei has an interest in. After observing Kat and her son Max, the protagonist meets with her and learns that Andrei is blackmailing her by threatening to expose her role in the fraudulent sale of the painting. The last time Kat was happy was on Andrei's yacht in Vietnam, but he gave her an ultimatum to leave with the promise of never seeing Max again. Kat refused and left with Max, and as she was leaving, she witnessed a woman jumping off the yacht. Shortly after, Andrei's henchmen arrive to escort Kat out, and the protagonist fights off some of the henchmen in an attempt to follow her. Kat sees the commotion before being driven away by Andrei's men. Kat reaches out to the protagonist for help in stealing the painting back. The protagonist teams up with Neil and Mihir to infiltrate Andrei's storage facility at Oslo Airport, but Neil discovers the tight security and devises a plan to crash a plane into the hangar as a distraction. The crew executes their plan as the protagonist and Neil sneak into the facility disguised as professionals. A cargo jet loaded with gold bars crashes, and they make their way to a room with a glass window dividing it and containing two machines. The window has bullet holes from an event that hasn't happened yet, and the machines open, revealing two identical men. One antagonist runs past Neil, but the other, who is inverted, struggles with the protagonist. The inverted antagonist reaches for an inverted gun that catches the bullets from the holes. After unmasking the other antagonist, Neil stops the protagonist from killing him just as he seems to fly out the loading door. The team then takes a safe position as a recovery team enters the facility. Next, the protagonist meets with Priya on a boat, where he learns about the turnstile, a machine that inverts time, and was made in the future. Priya warns him not to kill Andrei until they can determine his connection with the future. Meanwhile, Kat is informed that the painting was destroyed, so she arranges a meeting with Andrei. The protagonist accompanies them to a dinner, during which Andrei appears to threaten him over his association with Kat. However, the protagonist convinces Andrei to set up a boating trip to discuss the opera. Before the meeting, the protagonist tells Kat that his instinct prompted him to move the painting before the crash. During the meeting, Kat tries to drown Andrei, and the protagonist rescues him. Andrei then asks the protagonist to acquire plutonium for him in exchange for repayment, and reveals that he had killed a co-worker in the past to secure his own future. He also threatens Kat, saying that nobody else can have her. Following the dinner, Andrei goes outside to meet a helicopter carrying a crate of gold bars. The protagonist watches as Andrei beats a man to death with a gold bar, and he is caught by Andrei's henchmen. However, Andrei agrees to help the protagonist acquire the plutonium in Tallinn, and lets him go. The protagonist meets up with Neil to carry out the heist. Meanwhile, Kat and Andrei have another argument, and she tries to kill him but is beaten and taken hostage. The protagonist and Neil follow a truck and surrounded with other vehicles, allowing the protagonist to enter and grab the supposed plutonium case. However, he discovers that it contains a different artifact. Andrei's van appears, and he threatens Kat's life while holding a gun. A car that had previously crashed drives by in reverse, and the protagonist appears to throw the case to Andrei. He then tries to save Kat, but they are attacked by Andrei's men who open fire on them. The protagonist is taken captive and placed in a separate room similar to the one in Oslo. Andrei has Kat with him while they are inverted, and he tortures her by shooting her with an inverted bullet in the abdomen, demanding to know the location of the plutonium. The protagonist eventually tells him that the plutonium is in the glove box of an inverted BMW. After Andrei leaves, Neil and Agent Ives lead a team of Tenet agents to kill Andrei's men and rescue the protagonist and Kat. However, Kat's wound is fatal, and she is dying. The protagonist becomes suspicious of Neil after learning that he has always been involved with Tenet, and he begins to suspect that Neil knows more than he's letting on. He admits to lying about the location of the artifact. In an attempt to save Kat, the protagonist decides to use the turnstile to take them back to the previous week. He wears a respiratory mask while going through the machine to protect himself from the effects of inverted lungs. They arrive at the moment of the chase, and he ends up in the BMW that later crashes. When Andrei realizes the object he is looking for is not there, the car explodes, and the inversion causes the protagonist to almost freeze. He is rescued and, with Neil's help, takes Kat through the turnstile to the previous week when they were at the Oslo facility. Once there, the protagonist reveals himself as the antagonist and fights his inverted self while Neil sees that the person he was chasing was actually the protagonist. Afterward, the protagonist uninverts himself, and Kat is safe. During their meeting, Priya informs the protagonist that the artifacts sought by Andrei are components of the algorithm, which could be used to invert the entire world and that future humans intend to use it to combat global warming. She also reveals that there are other individuals capable of saving the world, but the protagonist insists on taking on the responsibility. With the plan of using Kat to gain Andrei's trust and thwart his plans, Priya arranges a meeting between them on a ship. Upon learning about Andrei's plan to use the algorithm to invert humanity and wipe them out on the day of their yacht trip in Vietnam, the protagonist, Neil, and Ives lead their team to the location of the dead drop where the algorithm is assembled. They plan to go through a temporary pincer movement, with half of them moving normally and the other half moving inverted to get through the zone. Meanwhile, Kat decides to invert herself and go back to the day on the yacht to delay Andrei from killing himself. As they make their way through the zone, they come across numerous explosions. The protagonist and Neil are aided by a masked agent with a red tag similar to the agent at the opera house, who takes a gunshot but helps them reach the algorithm. After the plan succeeds, Kat shoots Andrei in the chest and pushes his body off the yacht. She then jumps from the yacht, revealing that her past self witnessed her own self jumping. After disassembling the algorithm, Ives warns the protagonist and Neil to stay hidden or face being killed. As Neil and Ives depart, the protagonist discovers a red tag in Neil's bag, revealing that Neil was the one who got shot at the gate and recruited by the protagonist in the future. The two bid farewell, ending a friendship that the protagonist has yet to encounter. In London, the protagonist intervenes as Priya and one of her gunmen attempt to capture Kat. He kills the gunman and sits behind Priya in her car, revealing that he is the founder of Tenet and that they were both working for him all along. To eliminate a loose end, the protagonist kills Priya and watches as Kat departs with Max. Subscribe our channel for more content like this. Have a good day.